Welcome to Books in the Freezer, a podcast dedicated to the deliciously disturbing world of horror fiction. I'm your host, Stephanie, and today I am joined by listener favorite, returning guest, and author Grady Hendrix to talk about witchcraft for wayward girls and witches in horror. So, Grady, welcome back.
Thanks for having me. This is exciting. Witch Talk.
Woo! Witch talk.
That should be the name of our new lifestyle podcast, Witch Talk.
Oh, and it stinks that TikTok is going away because we could have made it Talk
I
T-O-K.
know.
Witch talk,
Oh,
witch talk.
ah, man, always be thinking. Always be marketing.
I mean, of course. But can you tell us a little bit about witchcraft for wayward girls?
Yeah, it's my new book. It's coming out in January, and it is set in Florida in 1970 in a home for unwed mothers. And it's about four girls who are sent away, as the term used to be, to have their babies in secret. And while they're there, the late 60s, early 70s, there was a huge boom in sort of like occult paperbacks. Like you would go to the supermarket and find like everyday witchcraft or like how to be a sensuous witch or, spells and charms for the young single woman. And they find one of these books, and it turns out to be real magic, and complications ensue. Warning: there are scenes of childbirth and pregnant bodies doing what pregnant bodies do, which seems to squick some people out
Yeah.
weirdly, and witchery.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who's gone through two pregnancies, it is a body horror unto itself.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, right? Like, I try to read a lot of like the genre I'm writing, and so I was reading a lot of sort of lit fic and books like about pregnancy and pregnant women, and a lot of them were either total body horror, like my baby sucking my life, or very like we're gonna have a baby. Oh my god, it's the most amazing thing ever. Oh no, I'm eating pickles. And then like a chapter would end with labor and start again, like, post delivery. And I was just like, what? What's this thing? But to be honest, my editor and I fought like cats and dogs over the childbirth scenes. Like
Really?
showing childbirth is just weird. And also I'm a middle-aged man with no children, so it's weird I'm writing it.
I mean, the people want childbirth. I was shocked this year. I saw the first Omen
Mm,
and the depiction of childbirth in that. I was
yeah.
shook.
Well, it's funny, I was just rewatching the Twilight movies and, Kristen Stewart having Renesmee, like, they go pretty brutal in that, like, they go pretty hardcore. I mean, Edward bites that baby out of her womb. Yeah.
Oh my God. I had blocked that out.
So did a lot of people. Well, it's funny too, like, since I was a small ginger child, I was been terrified about having a baby. Like, I know I'm never gonna have a baby, like, that's something I will never happen, but it's weird. I'd always been terrified of it, and for this book, I really, like, dove in, and now I'm, like, totally fascinated, like, cannot squeak me out. You got a birth story, I wanna hear it.
I mean, I guess I do want to know with all the research you did surrounding pregnancy, what's the weirdest thing you learned?
Well, I you know, well, okay, so yes, I talked to a lot of moms who were all really generous about sharing their birth stories with me. A lot of OBs, a lot of like deliverists and labor and delivery nurses and things like that. And I mean, people were super nice. Took classes, read my books, did all that stuff. And the thing that weirded me out the most and took the most uh, sort of finessing in the book was what childbirth was like in general in 1970. Like, man, that's a horror story, and I had to make sure that it didn't overwhelm the actual other stuff in the book because I mean I've got my Williams obstetrics from I think 68. I've got my pregnancy birth and home planning by Alan Guttmacher, MD, and all those books from then. And it was wild to me, A, how dismissive they were of the mother's experience. I mean, the books are very definite that morning sickness is all in your mind, and then it ranges.
Ew.
I know. It ranges though from some more enlightened people felt like, well, some women may feel this way, but they'll get over it. Two, women feel this way because they're uncomfortable with giving childbirth and ruining their bodies. And so they're reacting with this sort of like psychosomatic sickness. Um, Things like, you may gain 22 and 3/4 pounds during your pregnancy. I mean, these like pages of charts of how much weight you're allowed to gain. I mean, it's really wild.
Oh
Like,
my God.
just, yeah. And just, and talking to, I knew a couple of OBs who I interviewed for the book who were working not in the 70s, but in the 80s and 90s. And one of them, I mean, they were both like, "Yeah, that was not great." But one of them was very upfront about, when she was doing her her OB rotation on her residency in, I think, '89 or '90, and she was like, you know, the first, episiotomy I ever repaired. She was like, "As a 3rd degree episiotomy," and that's a big one, and she's like, "I'd never done it before," and the doctor was like, "Here you go. I'm out," and just left her alone to do it. I mean, which is so negligent for the patient, so much can go
Yeah.
wrong, and she was also like, "Oh, yeah, on a regular basis, I was watching doctors induce so that they wouldn't mess up their weekend plans, if they had a
Ugh.
patient who went into labor on a Friday afternoon." Um, I mean, it's just, and so now I know childbirth is very contingent. Did you do it naturally? Did you have an epidural? Did blah blah blah? And I know there's a lot of people assuming their judgments getting made on them depending on how they had their baby. And I
Definitely.
mean, I've certainly encountered some of that, and I get it. Um, it's a very personal experience from what I understand. And I think it's easy to feel defensive that someone's like judging how you chose to have your baby. As long as the mother lives and the baby lives and they're both healthy, who the hell cares?
Hmm.
But I also get why there was that whole sort of what a lot of people regard as this hippy dippy midwife, Ina May Gaskin pushback in the late 60s, early 70s, on hospitalized childbirth because it was so cookie cutter and so ignored
Yeah, it makes
the
sense.
mother. And I get why there was this pushback to, hey, come to our farm in the woods and have 32 hours of labor. It'll be great. Um, and I feel like, there's probably the best way is somewhere in between there. But it was really, to me, to read something by like Ina May Gaskin, who, one of the first like big midwives who was really bringing it back in the early 70s and late 60s, to read her and then to read sort of like, other, doctors talking about what they were doing in childbirth was just, it was like reading books from two different planets. It was really crazy.
Yeah. So, how common was it? It happens in the book a few times where the mothers just go under and then they woke up and they've given birth.
Yeah. Yeah. So twilight sleep was a little more common earlier, like definitely 50s, 60s in through there. In this book, so around the early 60s, epidurals started coming around, but they were regarded as really advanced medical technology. And so, like, for an unwed mother going into a hospital to give a baby, the doctors just probably, I talked to an OB whose dad was practicing around then, and he was like, "My guess is most doctors just don't want to put up with their guff." He's like, "They would probably just put them right under." You know what I mean? That wasn't
What?
his personal feeling, but he's like, at the time, I think doctors are looking at this woman who's, not generating a lot of revenue. She's basically, they're regarding her as a charity case and they're doing her a favor, and they'll just put her right under. You know what I mean? I don't want to hear any of your lip. I don't want to deal with how you're feeling. I'm going to put you under, scoop it out,
Oh
the
my
end.
God. Um,
Yeah.
it's just crazy to look back at history, though, and to assume that falsely that we've always been a certain amount of progressive.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you open the book with quotes about teen motherhood,
Yeah.
and I think most readers will be shocked by the dates because they keep on getting more recent and more recent. I mean,
Yeah.
starting in 1927.
Yeah. And go up through the 2000s. Well, there is a real, and that was one thing I got to say that was shocking. But just how much we vilify, and I include myself in it because unconsciously I think I bought into it too. Unwed mothers, single mothers, just they're so vilified. And sometimes there's code words in there, like welfare moms and, single parent homes. Well, which parent? The mother, like, um, but there is this weird cultural thing to really come down hard on moms. You see it again and again and again. And so it's funny the few times, because I read so much stuff, probably from I would say the 50s on through the 70s, talking about people dealing with unwed mothers, social workers and teachers and all that, unwed mothers who wrote books. I mean, a lot of that stuff's out of print now, but so when you found people actually showing compassion for these
Yeah.
unwed mothers, like, I mean, two of my family members were unwed mothers who were sent away, when they were teenagers, and
Wow.
they were both raped, and or date rape, but like, they were sent away as if they'd done something wrong. And when you actually find people showing compassion, it was so like I was like clinging to it, like clinging to ship, floating a life preserver and shipwreckage, because it was so
Yeah.
rare.
Wow. I was a teenager when MTV released 16 and Pregnant. And I
Ah,
remember there was so much hand wringing
yeah.
surrounding the show. I mean, from family members, I heard, like, oh, this glorifies teen pregnancy, and we're going to see an epidemic of teen mothers because they're just
Mhm. Yeah,
trying to get on the show, trying to get their 15 minutes of fame. And let me tell
yeah,
you, as someone who watched the show, every episode ended with the birth. The camera's like shoved in their face, bright lights. It was
yeah.
traumatizing. And there was actually a recorded decrease
Was
in
there really?
births after the show. Yeah,
That's
5%.
wild. That's amazing. Well, it's funny, it also swung in the opposite direction. In the 50s and 60s, there was this real push, and it actually sort of lingered, but you heard a lot of people talking about it, of we don't shouldn't do too much sex education about childbirth because it'll scare girls from having babies if they know what they're in for. Like, come on, give them some credit. Like, they're not idiots.
Yeah. Ugh, I hate that.
Well,
And I just,
yeah, go ahead.
no, I mean, what I was going to say is going to bring the mood down. So if you had something lighter,
No,
go
bring
ahead.
it down. Bring it down.
Okay. I mean, I was going to say, what's it like releasing a book about a pre Roe v. Wade world into a now post Roe v. Wade world?
So it's really, yeah, it's not something I was thinking about much because honestly, this book is one I've wanted to write for a long time. And I finally
Mhm.
sort of figured my way into it. And my editor was like, yeah, sure, very blithely, little anticipating the road ahead. I mean, because this was a rough one to write. And she and I both emerged from it pretty battered and bruised. Um, but I started writing it, and at a certain point, it dawned on me because it was going to come out in August of this year. And I was like, oh crap, this book's going to come out. It's going to center on reproductive rights, and it's going to be right before an election that is going to center on reproductive rights. And then I kind of blew my deadline. So it got moved to January. And I was like, oh, well, if Harris wins, I guess no one will care. And if Trump wins, I don't know. And so now here we are. But it was always a secondary consideration. And now it's weird. It's really weird because also I really like I set the book in 1970 instead of 1950 because I didn't want it to feel too in the past. Um, the New York Times is set in a maternity home or home for my mother's in Florida. New York Times just did a whole piece on maternity homes in Florida. Like they're very different from what they were, but these were homes for unwed mothers, in
Mhm.
Florida now. My cousin is a adoption lawyer, and she deals with this thing of pregnant teenagers all the time, with their parents hiding them away, sending them to their aunts, as they say. Um,
Really?
I just drove past a road sign in South Carolina that said, looking for foster homes for pregnant teens. It was a Florence Crittenden home ad, which is again they were one of the not chains but networks of homes for unwed mothers pre-Roe, and they still exist. They just kind of recalibrated their mission after that, after Roe. So I hate the feeling that like this is an old timey thing that's only just now come back with Roe going away. Man, we've always had people getting pregnant without being married, and we've always, as a culture, been embarrassed by them and wanted to hide them away.
I did not know this.
Yeah, it's pretty intimate. But yeah, it is weird for the book to be coming out now. I don't know how it's gonna read. You know what I mean? I'm so close to it. I don't know how it reads.
Yeah, I can imagine. And you said you had two aunts that were sent away to these homes. Was that the first time you had heard of
Yeah,
this?
and it wasn't aunts. I don't want to identify which family members
Oh,
it
I'm
was. Yeah, yeah.
sorry.
But yeah, that was the first time. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you always kind of hear about homes from like John Waters talks about, the homes with the nuns, because I think Mink Stoll got sent to one or something, or a reform school. So you always knew they existed. Um, But the first time I really heard about it was, yeah, when I had these two relatives, one and then the other, who in their 70s suddenly came out that they'd been sent away when they were teenagers. Um, and I remember when it, and one of them reunited with her child, and the other never did. And she took it very personally. And I remember hearing from hearing a conversation with my mom that she had, and she was very upset, saying, my child never wanted to, was always angry and never wanted to get in touch, and I left my address with the home, and she never reached out, and she must hate me. And my mom saying, well, you don't know that. Like, she could be dead. And it really hit me. Like, you could have a kid and they could be dead
Oh my
and
God.
you have no idea.
Yeah.
Like, they could have died at 3, they could have died at 8, they could have died at 30. You don't know.
Yeah.
And that's rough. And one of the fights I had with people, both sort of beta readers and my editor, and other people with this book when I was writing it, was it was really hard for people to feel sympathy for the girls in the book, who were sent away, because a lot of them felt like, well, this is the best thing for them to go away, have the baby, give it up for adoption, and don't think about it again and get on with their lives. And maybe it is. I don't know. Like, I'm not omnipotent, but there had to be a better way. There had to be. To
Yeah.
for teenagers to be blamed, shamed, hidden away, to never hear from their kid again, for the kid to never hear from their parent, like, there had to be a better way. Like, surely the society that put people on the moon and invented Uber Eats can come up with a better way to deal with a pregnant teenager. And in fact, one thing that was kind of astonishing to me is, it's not what Black families did. There were Black families who, when a kid was pregnant, went to the homes, but it was a minority. I think it was something, the number I saw was a little over 70% of Black families in America from 45 to 73, if there was an out of wedlock pregnancy, usually kept the mother within the family and kept the child
Mm.
within the family. Um, and, those kids grew, you have to assume statistically, those kids grew up to be fine, you know? And so there was another way. You could have done it, it just, we just didn't.
Yeah. I mean, to be a teenager, and this is a coming of age story, and coming of age, but also definitely coming of rage, which I
Sure.
liked. But yeah, I can't imagine going through such an adult thing and being treated like a
Yeah.
child.
Well, and legally treated like a child, right? Like, not
Yeah.
just patronized and having information hidden from you, but having no rights.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh. And sorry, definitely switching gears here, but this is a period piece. And one of my favorite parts of reading period pieces is the food. And I just want to know, did you end up trying any of these? Like, did you make hot dog salad? Did you make a cooked cabbage salad with Campbell's cheddar cheese soup on top?
Yeah, so one of the things that was funny with this book is when you read sort of pregnancy and childbirth manuals and, like, things to expect when you're having a baby kind of stuff from the 60s and 70s, there's so much emphasis put on nutrition. And then you read, uh sort of cookbooks from the 60s and 70s, and you're reading about, like, pineapple apricot nut loaf, and pineapple pate, and savory steak slices, and Mirabeau beef pie, and you're like, what is this garbage? It's really sort of disconcerting. It's a real sort of split. Eat healthy food, and here are your options. Different degrees of casseroles and slop. Um,
Seriously.
and it came to a point where I was like, "Oh, I'm putting all these recipes in." Um, and some of them I've eaten just because I grew up in the South, and I mean, I grew up in the 70s and 80s. Like, the go-to salad when I was a kid was half of a canned pear with a big scoop of mayonnaise on top and shredded cheddar cheese. Sometimes some raisins on top of that. Um, and there was stuff that was good, like a bread and a butter and sugar sandwich is delicious. It's probably not very good for you,
Is
but
that
it's
just
delicious.
what it sounds like?
Yeah, it's a sandwich, and you spread it
Okay.
with butter, and then you sprinkle sugar on it, and you eat it. Um, but yeah, so, you know, suspended fruit salad and Coca-Cola, which is like a Jello mold with fruit chunks in it, usually canned. This is my great aunt's one of her favorite recipes. And then instead of water with the Jello to put it back together, you put in Coca-Cola.
Ooh.
Um, it's the kind of thing that you eat and you feel your teeth dissolving as you eat it. Um, so yeah, so it was really, you know, I had some of these recipes, but before I ever wrote the book.
I follow a few accounts on TikTok that recreate old recipes, and they recently did Marilyn Monroe's stuffing recipe, which I don't know if you're familiar.
No.
Yeah, she used ground beef, hard boiled eggs, and raisins.
Ground beef, hard-boiled eggs, and raisins. Wow, that is like, it's funny, you hear about, like, people going out for 3 martini lunches, and you're like, "Oh, how did they go back to the office after that?" You hear about stuff like that recipe, and you're like, "How do you function with concrete slabs in your stomach?"
Just whole hams encased in jello.
Yeah.
Like, what were we doing?
Well, two things that I think are so taken for granted now, like in terms of like life, because you're talking about historical fiction. One is how different pregnancy was before we did imaging all the time. Like, if you were having a baby in 1980, chances are you never got a sonogram. You never, maybe if they thought something was wrong, you got an amnio, but that is centesis, but that's it. And now it's like you go in what? You get a sonogram every 2 weeks. Like, it's pretty constant imaging. But the other thing is how differently we eat now. I mean, like, a
Yeah.
lot of people still eat like garbage, but it's a different caliber of garbage. Like, it's better and worse. I was somewhere recently and everyone had a water bottle with them. And I'm like, when I was growing up, man, it was like you had like a glass of water with dinner and lunch, maybe. Like, you aren't doing a lot of hydrating. Now it's like if you don't have your bottle of water with you at all times, yeah, exactly. What's wrong with you? But like, Jesus, in 1988, it's like, why do you have water with you all the time? You an amphibian?
And that's why their skin looked like that. And
Yeah,
now we're a hydrated
so
society.
hydrated.
We haven't even talked about witches yet.
Mm,
I wanted to ask, when did this story, because I heard you on Agatha's podcast a while ago when you were working on this,
mm,
and it wasn't a witch story at
right.
that point.
Yeah, it started out as a faux horror book because I always want to write faux horror. I really like it as a genre. And about two solid drafts in, my editor's like, when you do this, she's like, this isn't, it's very vague. It's not, kind of, and that's not really how she sounds. And But in my head it is. And she's like, when you do the show for this, like after the book's out and you're touring and you're doing a show, what is the show going to be about? And I was like, well, witches. And she's like, well, interesting you say that because there's no witches in this book. And I was like, oh yeah, good point. And that's when it started becoming about witchcraft. And witches are tricky, like, is it a woman in a candy house eating children, or is a witch like a bunch of naked chicks dancing around in the woods and worshiping the moon? Like, the image of the witch is so different. No one really much has ever been executed for being a vampire in real life, but tens of thousands of people have been murdered for being witches. I mean, still to this day, thousands of people are killed for being witches. Few people identify as a ghost or a haunted puppet, but lots of people identify as witches, in real life. So it was really tough to get witches right. And I didn't want to wind up stealing too much from like a real witch tradition. Um, so I fabricated a lot of it, even though there are bits and pieces of like Dianic Wicca and a little Gardnerian Wicca in there, and some Greek and Roman pagan stuff. But yeah, it took a while to get around to realizing I needed witches in the book if it's going to be about witches.
Yeah. Well, I loved it. I loved all the excerpts from How to Be a Groovy
Oh, thank
Witch.
you.
I mean, it's a book I would have picked up as a
Yeah,
teen because, like, how could you not?
exactly. Yeah, that's a real steal from, there was a real book called How to Be a Sensuous Witch, and I was like, "Oh, it's so great." And I was like, "Oh, I got to do something like that." So, How to Be a Groovy Witch. And then I stole the name of that, F. Natas, the author's name, from a really fantastic LSD exorcism possession book from the early 70s called Exorcism by Ethnatos.
Love it. Well, since this episode is witch horror, should we talk about some witch horror movies?
Yeah, let's do it. Um, I mean, I gotta say, it doesn't get more iconic than Suspiria, which will
Mm-hmm.
always be a favorite. And it's weird after writing the book to rewatch Suspiria and realize how much it hits the traditional tropes. A young girl goes off to a foreign place. You know, it's a house in the middle of nowhere. It's inhabited by witches. She's got to sort of come of age and find her way and escape from them, and everything's beautiful.
Oh, absolutely. I will say I also quite enjoyed the remake.
Yeah, I haven't seen the remake. I have to watch it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you do have to set aside like 3 hours for it, but it's good.
Ballet witches.
Ballet witches. I mean, Rosemary's Baby. I think it's so fascinating the morality in witch stories. Like, are we talking which protagonist or which
Yeah,
antagonist? Like, what is the angle we are taking with these
yeah,
stories? I find that so fascinating.
right. I mean, on the one side, you've got practical magic, right? The Nicole Kidman, Sandra Bullock movie where it's like, they're witches, witches are awesome. And then you've got Rosemary's Baby, which is like, witches worship Satan.
Yeah, all of them witches.
Yeah, all of them witches. Oh God, I originally wanted to name the book in this "All of Them Witches," like instead of "How to Be a Groovy Witch." And apparently, the Ira Levin estate is super litigious, and my editor was like, "We don't
No.
even want to go there. Like, we've had trouble.
Oh.
Everyone's had trouble. Don't do it."
Oh my God.
Yeah,
I would not have guessed that.
yeah. I mean, he was a great writer, but yeah. But it's funny. There was a great Spanish witch movie from the 70s. I think Armando Osorio called Demon Witch Child. But it's like because there's a great trope in witch movies that I don't think it knows how great it is, where it's like the ghost of a witch who was killed in the witch trials is reincarnated or possesses a child or someone in the present,
Hmm.
superstition, demon witch child. There's a bunch of movies where this is the plot. And um and when you think about it, and demon witch child is a great one because it's like a 9-year-old girl gets possessed by a dead witch, and then she just cuts off people's junk, and it's like beautiful. Um, and on the one hand, like the Malleus Maleficarum, which was the big witch hunting manual in the 15th century, it's really obsessed with witches stealing penises. So it's like, well, that makes sense. But the other part of it is, I love the fact that witches had a sort of clause built in where they cannot be defeated. Like, execute us, burn us at the stake, hang us at the gallows, and in 200 years, we will come back and possess your children and they will murder you. It's such a great sort of like fail safe device.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, witches are smart.
I mean, the hocus pocus of it all.
Exactly. Are you a fan of The Witches, the Angelica Houston movie?
I have actually never seen it. I am familiar with it. I've read
Yeah.
pieces on it. But I know it's an iconic
Yeah.
portrayal of
And
a
it's good, but it's
witches.
also, yeah, but it's also evil witches, which makes a lot of sense because Roald Dahl didn't really like women.
Yeah. Oh man, I watched a movie on Tubi from the 2000s called
Oh,
Tamara for this.
is
You
that
seen
the
it?
the weird Carrie kind of semi remake?
With Jenna Dewan
She's like got an axe
on the cover?
on the
Yeah.
poster.
Yeah. It was such a weird script because it was also a little slashery. Like, she's this weird loner girl. She was like a witch and did this love spell. But then her classmates pranked her and killed her. And now she's like back from the dead looking for revenge.
Yes.
Yeah. And then they kill her. And I just didn't love the morality of that. I think she should get a little vengeance
Yeah.
as a treat.
Well,
She was wrongfully
no,
murdered.
exactly. And that's one of those things with witch movies where you're like, cut the witch a break. Like,
Yeah.
they've been through a lot. They've put up with a lot. They're put up with our garbage. Um, yeah, it's really I highly recommend. So are you on Letterboxd?
Yes.
Okay, so I really, really recommend. There is, and you don't hear this very often, but there is a beautiful review of a Russian witch movie called VIY, from like 1962 or something. It's a great movie, but
Okay.
it's about a monk who's sort of wandering and he needs seeking food and shelter on his pilgrimage or whatever. And in a village, they're like, "Oh, totally, we'll put you up, but we just had a girl die, and you need to sit with her body in the church for 3 days while she sorta lies there before she's buried. Oh, and she was a witch." And so every night she sorta comes back to life and, like, beats his ass, and he's sorta gotta survive it. It's great. It's a fantastic movie, but, there's a reviewer called Narthan, Narthxanne, I believe, who wrote this amazing, almost 2,000 word review of V
Wow.
that is kind of from the point of view of the witch and just what it's like to be a witch and to live in this world with people who hate you. I highly recommend it. I actually like got in touch with them and talked to them about it. It's really an incredible review. It's a
Ooh.
weird thing to say. You should read this letterbox review.
I mean, we find art in the strangest of places.
Exactly. Um, but there's so many good. There's a great witch movie I really love. It was made for television in the UK in like 1975 or so. Um, and you can only find it on YouTube because it was made for British television, and it's just sort of been thrown up on YouTube by someone info, but it's called Moraine, Murrain, which is a word I think it's either Welsh or Gaelic, I'm not quite sure, but for sort of witchcraft, and it was made in this television series called Against the Crowd about people who stand against a crowd, against public opinion, and it's about a vet who goes to a small village in the middle of nowhere. It's contemporary. It's modern day, and there's been all these animals dying because the water from this well is poisoned, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, it's the witch." And no one's going to sell her groceries, and no one's going to, give her electricity or firewood, and she's just going to die. And the vet's like, "Oh my god, come on, guys, it's just some old lady, you're blaming her for your problems, grow up." And then it becomes this whole it's only an hour long, but it's really fantastic about sort of like a modern day witch hunt and this sort of, don't be so confident. Something someone said to me once when I worked for this parapsychological research place was, you know, don't think you know everything. Like maybe there is life
Hmm.
after death. You don't know. You're the guy who answers the phones here and like, fills takes the stuff to the post office. What do you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, witchcraft, what do you know? So what's your favorite witch movie? Like hands down, the one you'll go back to.
Ooh, that I think it has to be Practical Magic.
Mm.
I know it's a little on the lighter side, but that's an annual watch for me.
Although it's kind of dark. I mean, it's a bit dark with the abusive boyfriend and everything.
Yeah, it's definitely a tonal
Yeah,
journey. It's a little all over the place, but I think that's part of the charm.
it almost it.
And
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
sorry. I have such great memories of it. I watched it in theaters, and I remember on the walk back to the car really just trying to manifest my powers and just thinking that I could be a witch, you
Anyone can
know?
do it. Well, it's funny watching Practical Magic, it gave me real Gilmore Girls vibes, and I was like, Gilmore Girls could have been better if, like, Rory and Lorelai were just low-key witches. That it didn't have to be the focus of every episode, but just low-key witches.
I mean, it would explain the way the town reacts to them.
Yeah,
Like they treat them like they're the most interesting, hilarious people to walk the planet. And I mean, that's a fantasy of mine, right? Like I moved to a small town and
the
I'm,
local witch.
yeah, like the most interesting
Yeah,
person ever. And you know what? We will talk about a small
let's
town
do
local
it.
witch in one of my book picks.
But also it makes people like like Paris totally gives like witch hunter vibes, like
Oh my
very
God.
type A, very like
You're
everything
right.
has to be rational.
Yeah. This reminds me on Patreon, sometimes we will do watch parties.
Okay.
And one time we watched Rob Zombie's Lords of
Oh,
Salem.
what'd you think?
Okay, so I'm not a big Rob Zombie
Mm,
person. I don't love the way he writes dialogue, but aesthetically, I thought this was a very pretty film. And I love an old
yeah,
crone. I love
yeah.
letting an old woman, you know,
Hmm.
go ham and be crazy. In the chat, everyone hated the movie, and of course, because
Yeah.
it's, I get it, I got all the criticisms, but I think that's my favorite Rob Zombie movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta say, I feel the same way you do. I saw it in theaters because I was lured in by the amazing trailer,
Yeah.
and the coven, the black mass, the Sabbath aesthetic, I was all into. That was a mood board for me. But, otherwise, I was kinda mixed. Yeah, I didn't really love it.
Yeah. And I mean, that's fair and understandable. Oh, and we didn't talk about Robert Eggers' The Witch. I mean, we alluded to
Oh,
it, with the naked women,
yeah, so
but
where were you on that?
personally, a big fan. I loved it.
Yeah. So I was mixed on it.
Were
And I
you?
think, yeah, and I think, listen, is a sort of movie. I think it's amazing what he did. I mean, he did something really terrific, and is an aesthetic object is fantastic. But he runs into a problem, and I couldn't put my finger on it when I saw it, um, which is that witches are two-faced, right? Are they a sign of female empowerment, or are they a sign of a female monster? Like, are they the monstrous feminine, or are they the empowered feminine? And it's like, you know, you can't have both at the same time, right? I mean, if you're talking about that witches are sort of this liberation project, then you can't have them eating babies. But if you're talking about witches as the monstrous, then you can have them eating babies, but they can't really be liberators. And you run into that in the witch, which is that, there she is making body butter out of a baby, the witch, but then later it's sort of like, hey, we're witches, awesome, two thumbs up. And so I think he tries to straddle two kind of moving cars, and it's
Hmm.
it's difficult, because you squint and look at the witch with one eye, and you're kind of like, oh, this is a movie in which the solution to it is they should have killed everyone who was identified as being a witch. Then they'd be fine. Then you squint and look at it with the other eye, and you're like, no, no, no. It's the only way to discover yourself is to run off
Right.
into the woods and steal babies and eat them. Like, and so
Okay, but in a
it's
Puritan society, what are our
yeah,
choices?
exactly, exactly. So that's the criticism I have with it is I wish she'd taken more of a one side or the other point of view with witches, and owned it all the way through. But, I love the vibe. I think what he did was amazing in terms of like, I'm going to root this in history. I'm a big historical fiction, historical movie nerd. And it's one of the few historical movies I've ever seen where I'm not like writing a letter to the editor in my name in my head while I'm watching. Dear sirs, did you know quills weren't used at that time?
See, this is giving Paris Geller energy at the Bracebridge dinner,
Yeah,
her little list of
exactly.
anachronisms. Well, should we talk about some books?
Let's do it.
Okay, I can start us off with Undead Girl Gang by Lily Anderson. This is a young adult novel, and we are following two best friends in high school who start dabbling in witchcraft. And the novel opens up at one of the girls' funerals. And she kind of died under suspicious circumstances. And so the main girl is left grieving, kind of in denial, and she steals a grimoire to bring her friend back.
Oh,
So she does succeed. She does bring her friend back. But when she does, she also brings back two mean girls who had died earlier that year, also under suspicious circumstances. And I was talking to Agatha Andrews and Rachel Harrison about this book, and one of them said, oh, like a reverse Heathers. And I was like, oh my God, it is a reverse Heathers. That's exactly right. I think one of the most fun parts of the book is that the protagonist gets thrust into a role of like zombie wrangler. Like there's specific rules that apply to these undead girls surrounding how far away they can be from each other at any time. And like they all want to keep escaping and go back and visit their families, their old lives. And like they learn about each other and gain empathy, and there is a bit at the end about finding community as a witch, and this was just very heartwarming. It was very moving, very beautiful. It honestly made me cry, which I was not expecting for, I don't know, like a very bubbly YA novel.
oh, nice.
But also, listeners may not know that years ago, I recorded an entire episode about this book with BJ Colangelo from This Ends at Prom. So if that's something that sounds interesting, that is there. But yeah, that is Undead Girl Gang by Lily Anderson.
Nice. Okay, so for my first pick, I gotta say, this is sort of to me the ultimate witch book. Well, one of the ultimate witch books, but a witch book has been made into a fantastic movie. But it's Conjure Wife by Fritz Lieber from 1943. I think it's still in print. And there's a movie version, Burn Witch Burn, that's pretty great, sometimes known as Night of the Eagle from the 60s, which is really fantastic. And it runs like 80 minutes, which is in today's world barely a movie. Um, but it's about a professor at a small liberal arts college who discovers that his wife Tansy is using witchcraft to advance his career, and not just that, but all the faculty wives use witchcraft to advance their husband's career and hinder other professors, other wives, husbands' careers. And he's like, "Oh, this is ridiculous. This is superstition, throwing all these charms in the fire." And immediately he gets me too'd. And it devolves from there. And the thing I love about this book is it's so firmly on the side of the wives, in the sense that here are all these smug academic men who regard their wives as ornaments, their faculty wives. And they all think that their accomplishments in this world are due to their, academic prowess and scholarship and their hard work. And no, it's all due to their wives' witchcraft. And once they dismiss that and throw it away, they're screwed. It is it's a short book, it's a fast read, and it is so much fun. And the movie Night of the Eagle or Burn Witch Burn is also just a 900 miles per hour blast.
I need to read this. I was looking at this, like, this was almost one of my picks for this episode, but with the
Yeah.
holidays, reading
Who's
just,
reading?
it just got away from me. It didn't happen. But I love this as a metaphor for the invisible labor of
Yeah,
women.
right? It's so a 1943 book, but it's so ahead of its time.
Yeah, I mean, we're still talking about this today. There was that tweet that went viral, I think it was last year. It was some rich guy, he was saying he has like a great job and he has 6 kids and work-life balance and kind of like, ask me my secret. And everyone was like, the secret
Yeah,
is your wife. Someone is doing
exactly.
all the work.
Which, listen, if that works for you and you acknowledge it, great.
Yeah.
But like, just to assume that that's what's going to happen is insane.
Yeah. So my next pick is Conjuring the Witch by Jessica Leonard. And it's about a young couple that moved to a rural small town where kind of the only way to really be involved in the community is to join the local church. Like, that kind of seems to be the social hub. It kind of serves as a community center of sorts. And the preacher starts preaching odd messages, telling the congregation to stay away from the woods and to avoid the witches in the woods. And the wife does try to be involved in the church, but she quickly realizes there are limits to how involved she can be. So she starts attending the like ladies' Bible study, but then she says something a little too spicy and they rearrange the whole curriculum um to be very patriarchal, women submission type of stuff. Keep the women in their place. And, she does find some power in witchcraft. But what I like about this story and a lot of witch stories is the idea of a coven, of like mentorship, of finding a community and finding power by working together. So I like that in this, it doesn't put down the women in the church, like they work together. They are, you know, they are all under this oppression.
Yeah, that's something I really like. As much as I like practical magic, but it's like, I got issues. But it's something I really like in practical magic, that the women all work together at the end, and
Yeah.
something I kind of don't like about the craft. As much as I enjoy the craft for what it is, I hate the fact that all the women get turned against each other in the coven.
Yes. I that's always made me mad. So yeah, I do like that aspect of it. It's also just like a gnarly witch book and you're rooting for them. Did you ever watch those Hulu Into the Dark horror movies?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay, this reminded me of one of those. It was called Pure. It was about like a father-daughter purity culture camp.
Okay, yes, I did not see that one, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
I really liked it. I mean, the girls harness the power of Lilith, and you know what? They do get to have a little vengeance as a treat.
Lilith is underrated.
Agreed.
Okay, so for my next pick, I picked Lolly Willows from 1926 by Sylvia Townsend Warner. So Sylvia Townsend Warner was one of these early writers. She was in sort of the orbit of Virginia Woolf. And Lolly Willows, which is just like a name, Lolly, and then Willows, um, is when it came out, it was a huge hit. And it was actually the first Book of the Month Club pick for the Book of the Month Club. I think in like the 70s,
Wow.
its manuscript was displayed next to like Truman Capote's manuscript for Breakfast at Tiffany's at the New York Public Library. It was a big book that's just kind of fallen out of
Yeah.
circulation. And I think a new edition of it's getting published soon. But so basically the story is it's a woman hitting middle age. She never got married. She never had kids. And she kind of lives with family. And she always lived with her father. She's the daughter who stayed behind to take care of dad. And when he dies, she gets shunted off to live with her brother and her sister in law and take care of their kids. And then one day she's like, I'm done. I'm out. I'm moving. And they're like, well, that's ridiculous. Where are you going? She's like, move to the woods, be a witch. And she moves out to the woods, worships Satan, and becomes a witch. And and it's a happy ending. And it's such a great book for two reasons. One is there was a huge sort of at the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century trend that's since been called satanic feminism, where a lot of women's suffrage fighters, suffragettes, I guess people call them, people fighting for women's rights of vote, and early feminists were really reclaiming Satan and Lilith as images of freedom independence because they were like, we're really tired of everyone saying Eve was this bad person and Genesis chapter 3 is being used to say women are weak and susceptible to sin. And actually, what if Satan's not so bad after all? Like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. God doesn't want us to have the vote. Well, Satan does. And so Lolly Willows was one of these books that came out of that sort of satanic feminist movement. And it's really fun to just read a book that's like because it doesn't shy away from all the darker parts of witchcraft, but it's like, so what? They're awesome. Why not? Um, but then the other part is the tone of it is so pitch perfect. If you like Jane Austen, if you like PG Woodhouse, it's just one of those very dry, funny, wry, really well written British novels that is so freaking cozy to read. Like you read this with a cup of tea and like a blood soaked pentagram on your wall, and like it is a perfect vibe.
Like the vibes immaculate. I'm obsessed with everything you just said.
So yeah, that's my second book, Lolly Willows by Sylvia Townsend Warner from 1926.
And I don't know if I ever told you, but I grew up in like a Christian fundamentalist cult.
Oh,
And
really?
so and so like I went to a lot of those ladies conferences that were all about reminding you of your place. Like, you don't have rights, but like God loves you in
Well,
your own
yeah. Well,
way.
one of the things that I think is so great is that, and the early suffragist movement really shied away from it. Is I think it was Elizabeth Cady Stanton and a bunch of other of the early suffrage women fighting for suffrage uh, had a women's Bible that they wrote, which was their interpretation of the Bible, which really reinterpreted the role of Satan as, listen, I mean, I don't know. Maybe giving human beings knowledge wasn't the worst thing ever. And it was a real and a lot of the early suffrage voters were like, "Oh my goodness, we cannot come after Christianity this way," and sort of slow walked that backwards. But a lot of these early women fighting for equal rights were really like, "Okay, if you're going to say that we're in league with Satan, we're in league with Satan," and that's awesome because he made us smarter because it was the tree of knowledge, and
Yeah.
also like we're willing to question things. And what was so great about
Yeah.
the Garden of Eden anyways, everything was going to be the same forever. we're just going to live naked for the rest of our lives. And every now and then God was going to, like, let us name a few species of turtle.
Yeah. And I mean, the snake didn't lie.
Yeah. Well, and what I love is in the Sistine Chapel, the Michelangelo paints the snake as the serpent as Lilith.
Ooh.
She's Lilith. She's the red, half snake, half woman with red hair. And and there's that whole thing where Lilith was actually Adam's second wife before
Mm.
Eve. And then she didn't want to have sex the way Adam was. She was like, well, if we're equal, because she was created equal. And she's like, well, if we're equal, sometimes I can be on top during sex. And he's like, that's degrading. And she's like, well, how do you think I feel? And he's like, absolutely not. And she's like, smell you later. And like took off and hung out with a bunch of demons. And so then God made Eve from Adam's rib instead of from dirt. And so because she was made from Adam, she was his subordinate. And so Lilith, I love the idea that Lilith comes back to be like, psst, Eve, I got an apple
Yeah,
you should eat, dude. That guy is totally doing dirty by you.
I do love that. Okay, one final anecdote that I've definitely mentioned on the podcast before. But when I was in college, I was at one of these ladies' conferences and they were playing a video, like up on the big screens at church. And they were playing I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar and posting like pictures of like women's lib.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, that is so cool. Like, I am obsessed with these vibes. And then it was kind of like a record scratch. Here's what's really cool. And then these older ladies from my church came out flouncing around in long sleeve dresses to a song about classic femininity and how that's better. And I'm like, you did not make the point you think you're making.
Well, yeah. Well, it's funny. What was the oh God, in the 60s and 70s there was Witch, which was a political action committee. And it was I think it stood for, oh yeah, Women's International Terrorist Conspiracy from Hell. And they would go and do like protests and stuff. And it's the pictures of them. If you Google Witch, just do it as an acronym. It's so great. It's like they reclaim all that iconography and just make it look so punk rock.
Oh my God, you've given me so many rabbit holes
By
to
the
go
way, if you don't mind me
through.
asking, what denomination? Fundamentalists?
Oh, it was Independent Fundamental Baptist.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Got an HBO true crime documentary and everything.
Oh, what's it called?
Ooh, it's called Let Us Pray, but
Okay.
Prey.
Ooh, I see what they did there. Um, I'm sure it's a fair and even-handed assessment.
It's funny because my dad watched it and I don't know, I think he has complicated feelings about leaving and he thought it was pretty fair.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
was like, yeah, I mean, they didn't lie about anything. And it's not a fun watch, it's
yeah.
like youth pastors grooming and raping people and it's not whimsical. Yeah, there's
Not
not a lot of
whimsical.
whimsy.
Not whimsical murder.
Yeah, none of that. I don't know. There's not like a dead body we like worshipped, and there's not like a twin flames angle. Like that's not. There's not a fun angle. Okay, well, my final pick is Cackle by Rachel Harrison.
Oh yeah.
I thought it would be a good pick since we were talking about Gilmore Girls up top. This follows a woman named Annie who has recently turned 30. Her long term boyfriend broke up with her, and essentially her life just doesn't look like what she thought it would look like at 30. And she's having a bit of a crisis now that she has to essentially start over. She takes a teaching job in upstate New York and finds herself in this very Stars Hollow esque small town. And as she's there settling in, she meets a just fascinating older woman named Sophie, and they strike up a friendship. I love Sophie as a character. She really becomes this mentor type figure to her. But Annie begins to notice that when they go through town, the townspeople have a certain reaction to Sophie, and eventually she wonders, like, oh my God, did I just become friends with the town witch? And also, what does that mean? This book is so rereadable. I think it's one I pick up and kind of flip through often. She just has a way of writing what I am going through at the moment. And she released this kind of around the time I turned 30, and she just has been that kind of writer for me.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, I just read So Thirsty.
Oh yeah.
And like Rachel's books are I haven't read Cackle yet, but they're so much fun.
They
Like,
are.
there's
Yeah.
horror in it. They certainly definitely satisfy on that element, but they're kind of like, to me, they're like, man, I've got an afternoon, I've got a plane trip, whatever. Like, her books, like, hit that sweet spot. Like, they
Mhm.
get in, they punch stuff up, and they get out.
Yeah. So that is Cackle by Rachel Harrison, which I, again, wholeheartedly recommend. But I do want to squeeze one final bonus recommendation, which is We Ride Upon Sticks by Quanberry. It's a little lighter. It follows a Massachusetts girls field hockey high school team that harnesses the power of Emilio Estevez
Nice.
uh, to become witches. And it is so gloriously 80s. Like the captain of the team has like the circular, like claw bangs that have powers. I really
Magic
loved this one.
bangs.
Yeah. So that is We Ride Upon Sticks by Quan Berry.
Okay, so my third book, and this is a trashy, guilty pleasure pick, but I loved it, is Witch by Christopher Pike from 1990. And any chance to talk about Christopher Pike, I'll take. I was a little old for a lot of sort of that middle grade YA wave of horror, like Fear Street and R.L. Stein, Goosebumps, and the Christopher Pike books. So I came to them as an adult. And some of it, like, I can read R.L. Stein or Fear Street, be like, yeah, it's fun, ups and downs, ups and downs. Christopher Pike blew my mind. I mean, he is not safe to have around children, and his stuff is so wild and so over the top, which is not A plus Pike. It's sort of, I would give it a strong B, but it's basically a girl, mom dies, she discovers she's a witch, she has she knows she would healing powers. Friend gets killed in a liquor or shot in the head in a liquor store holdup, and she goes out for revenge. And it's another, Christopher Pike is really, I wouldn't want to say obsessed, but a trope he enjoys deploying is high school students with shotguns. And there's definitely a lot of high school students with shotguns in this book. Um, a lot of witch with a shotgun in a burning liquor store action. And it's fun. There's a little too much astral plane woogity woogity, but ultimately there's enough shotgun to the face magic that really like redeems it. So it's trashy. I would say if you were in a bar and they were like, we have a tasty IPA, we have Blue Moon, and we have Coors Light. This would be the Coors Light selection. But there's nothing wrong with Coors Light sometimes.
Yeah, there's not. It hits a certain spot.
Yeah.
I feel like we really went through a moment where we were really obsessed with astral projection. For a future episode, I read Lois Duncan's Stranger with My Face. Have
Yes.
you read? Okay, you read that one.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
wild.
Well, it's funny, there really was this period. I think that sort of early new age, I mean, definitely the 70s, late 60s into the 70s, but also that new age revival in the 90s where it was like, I don't know. Maybe we do have past lives. Maybe there is an astral plane. Who knows? Well, I kind of do, but what if we didn't?
I love that. These have all been great. You have given me so many like Wikipedia rabbit holes I'm gonna just
Oh
like
no, me
fall
too.
into.
I'm going after Undead Girl Gang.
Oh, good. I think you'll really like it. So I wanna hear what you think about it. But a question I ask all my guests is, what is your chilling obsession? What is something in horror you have been enjoying lately?
Okay, so two things. One is I have been there's actually a great BBC podcast called, I think, just The Witch, that I was listening to. It's about 9 episodes, 10 episodes. It's kind of the history of witches, which is a lot of fun, and it's very BBC, so it's very like comfy blanket, cup of tea kind of listening, which I've enjoyed immensely. And then the other thing is, I don't know. I think it does air in the U.S. Hold on. I think it's what's it on? Oh, like it's on Amazon Prime. It's around BritBox, all this stuff. But Inside Number Nine, I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I've not seen it, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's like a British anthology show. I think it's got like 8 or 9 seasons. They're only like
Wow.
6 episodes a season, but every episode's a standalone, and it's the guys who did League of Gentlemen, which is a British anthology show. Also, it's very horror oriented, and the
Oh,
only thing
okay.
that unifies them is they all take place inside something with a number nine: house number nine, hotel room number nine, a railroad carriage number nine, hospital room number nine, and they really lean horror. And some of the best supernatural TV I've seen, the 12 Days of Christine, or there's I think one called Suffer a Witch. There's a Christmas episode about
Okay.
Krampus. They all really play with format, and they're so much fun.
They seem like it. Okay. I'm gonna have to prioritize it and hunt that down because that sounds fun. But the second question that I ask all my guests
Mm.
is, what is your final girl song?
Yeah, always, without question, the Bangles cover of Hazy Shade of Winter. It's amazing. Every time someone's trying to make Final Girl Support Group into a TV series or a movie, I
Hmm.
keep sending them links to it over and over again, hoping to incept this as the theme song. It's such a great song, and it's so much better when you imagine it over like the opening credits or closing credits of
Yeah.
like a slasher.
I feel like it's got really good closing credit energy, like
Yeah,
cut right to
it's
it.
really amazing. By the way, what's your Final Girl song?
Okay. I think I'm going to have to honor my 4-year-old daughter and pick her current favorite song of the moment, which is Seether by Veruca Salt.
Wow, okay.
It's what she wants every day on the way to preschool. She told me she's a rock and roll girl with a rock and roll friends, and this is what she's all about.
Well, I've got to say, I am not a Swiftie just because I'm too old, but I've been obsessed with Karma, the Taylor Swift
Really?
song. It's such a great witch song, like strong witch
Yeah.
vibes.
Oh yeah, the energy of like personally, I'm not worried
Yeah,
about karma. I'm just
mhm,
here with my cat and my boyfriend. You
yeah.
do you, but like I got my stuff
Smell
figured
you
out.
later, dude.
Yeah.
Jake Gyllenhaal. Yeah.
I mean the whole Red
I mean, I
album.
assume it's about Jake Gyllenhaal.
I mean people debate like the timeline and who it's about. I know some people think it might be about her last long-term relationship, Joe Alwyn.
I know, but the Spider Boy bit, you're like, he's
Yeah.
the only one who's.
Spider-Bird. Oh no, no, no. It's about who's the guy that screwed her over on her
Oh,
masters.
oh, yeah, 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 sure, sure.
Weave your little
Spider,
webs
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
opacity. My pennies made your crown.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, fair enough. Because I got to say, like, I was being too literal with the Spider Boy thing, and then the Jake Gyllenhaal. Yeah,
I
you're
mean,
right.
she makes songs that reference multiple people, so
Yeah,
there could definitely be some of that in here. But everyone needs to go pick up a copy of Witchcraft for Wayward
they
Girls.
do. Yeah, it's I've heard that in case of a natural disaster of enormous planet destroying proportions next year, to get a seat on the space ark, you have to show a copy of it,
I
like an
mean,
ID.
I want to be prepared.
Yeah, and so you really want this just to
Yeah,
have in your go bag.
it's a
Two copies,
necessity.
one to read, one to have in your go bag.
I mean, you got to have the audiobook, the ebook, the
Yeah, all of
hardcover,
it.
paperback,
I know. I just found out there's three narrators on
Oh,
the
wow.
audiobook. I'm like, what? Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
I was like, whoa, too many words for just one person.
They said we are splitting this up. But
Yeah,
thank you so much for coming on the show and talking to me about witches and horror.
dude.
It
Thank
was
you for
so
having me. I love
fun.
doing this.
Books in the Freezer is a bi weekly podcast. We post episodes every other Tuesday. You can find us on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and TikTok for now at Books in the Freezer. You can send us an email at booksinthefreezer@gmail.com or visit our website for show notes at booksinthefreezer.com, where you will find a list of the books and movies mentioned, as well as a link to the Final Girl playlist, a link for merch, and I mean several links on different ways to support the podcast, including a link to Patreon. You don't have to spend any money to show your support for the podcast. There are several free ways to do that, including posting about the show on social media and leaving a review on a site like Spotify or Apple Podcasts. I have been your host, Stephanie Gagne. Thank you so much for listening, and see you next time on Books in the Freezer.